Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I am your host, Catryn Becker. In this podcast, we talk to business owners, entrepreneurs, investors, you name it. We talk to everyone, and we try to talk to people from all different types of industries so that we can learn what really brings us together instead of what drives us apart. Today, I have a friend of mine from high school who has done amazing things in the world, and it has been so great to reconnect with her and her family. Her name is Melissa Ricker, and she is the founder and CEO of Engineer to Scale. She started off as an engineer like me. She was in nuclear engineering and then also took the path into the entrepreneur world and has had great success and is changing lives all over the place. So I am so glad to have her on the show and to introduce her to all of you. So Melissa, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. What a nice introduction.
It's like my favorite part of doing this because
I mean, you could just follow me around and just introduce me.
I mean, why don't we do that enough? Like more, right?
I don't know. We have such a hard time introducing ourselves, and then we just need someone to follow us around.
Oh, I mean, that's a whole other topic that we could dive into, but we have some great items planned to discuss today. But Melissa, before we get into that, please tell everybody a little bit more about what it is that you do.
Oh, yay. So I love what I do. And we help online entrepreneurs grow their businesses using a very specific funnel strategy, which we've called the Engineer to Scale business model. And we are obsessed with doing that. And I know we're going to dig into this topic today, so I'm going to go ahead and put it out there with automations and AI to make our lives easier so we can work harder or smarter, not harder. Not harder. We do that sometimes, though.
We do that sometimes. And I think we like to, I don't know if it's just the engineer in us, but overthink things. I know I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes.
Oh, chronic overthinker. Chronic.
Well, I think one of the things that I think is really fascinating about your story and what you've done is you did the same things that so many of us do, that it's you go to high school, you go to, apply to colleges, you figure out what the heck you want to do in college, which I have such a hard time with trying, like now being in my 40s, thinking like, who thought it was a good idea for 18-year-olds to decide the rest of their life and then spend like thousands of dollars doing it? It's kind of crazy. But you went from nuclear engineering where you worked and then you start having children and things changed. Tell us a little bit more about what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I was super crazy, and I got my master's in nuclear engineering, and then I went straight into the corporate. I got my job, and I was scaling the corporate ladder pretty quickly. And then so by the time I ended up leaving my job, I walked away from I had an engineering manager position. I had a whole team of engineers, graphic designers, project man. I mean, the whole thing. Really great paycheck. I loved my job, and I actually I wanted to be CEO of that company. But something changed, and I think it happens to a lot of us, called motherhood. So I had my first baby, and I mean, up until the day I left for my maternity leave, I was like, of course I'm just coming back. He's going to daycare, and I'm going to continue my journey scaling the corporate ladder. And everything kind of changes when it comes time to leave. So leave him. But I did. I went back to work. Hardest thing I've ever done. And because I had that big career, I was getting up before he was up. I was leaving. Didn't get to see him a lot in the morning. Worked all day.
How much time did you take for maternity leave with your first?
I think it was about 2.5 months.
Okay, that's pretty good.
It was about 2.5. Yeah.
I feel like maternity schedules and leave has really changed in this country in the last few years, and they've gotten much more accommodating.
They have. It was right after I left, right after my maternity leave too. They extended it to like 3.5 months. So it was kind of crazy. I was like, "You serious right now?"
Yeah, I got 6 weeks. 6 weeks. I went and put a 6-week-old baby in daycare.
It's so hard.
Oh my
God, it's so hard. Yeah.
Anyway,
I ended up hiring a nanny who could come to my house, and I mean, it was fine. She's great with him, but like by the time I got home in the evening, he's already starting to get cranky. I mean, and I did that for a while. And like the day that I decided I was leaving was the day I came home. Friday, I'll never forget it. Friday afternoon, long commute home. It was like the worst,
Mm.
and I get home and he didn't want to come to me. He wanted to stay with the nanny.
Ouch.
Heart everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not how my story is going to end. And so I just made the decision. I was like, I'm going to figure something out. Like, I'm a freaking nuclear engineer. Like,
I can do anything.
I can do big things. And so I just ended up walking away from that job and that paycheck, and people thought I was crazy.
And how did that conversation go with your husband?
My husband, oh gosh, sorry, my son's watch is going off. I don't know if you can hear that. It'll stop in a minute. My husband's great because money really has never been a driver for him, like things like material things. And he also super smart dude, had a great job. So he just didn't care. Like, he was all very, very supportive of it. It was me that held, like, I was the one that was like, what am I doing? And what are you?
But how great to have the support, because, to have already doubts in your head, like, this is crazy, what am I doing? And then to have someone else also being like, yeah, this is crazy, don't do it, would be exponentially more difficult.
Now, some of my other family members were like, don't do, like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah,
biggest mistake. You're throwing everything. I heard that all the time. You're throwing everything away.
You worked so hard for this.
You worked so hard for, you just paid off your student loans. Like, what?
Yep.
But I did it. And like, in my head, I thought, well, I can do this. It can't be that hard, it can't be harder than the diffusion equation. But then, obviously what happened next was hard. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. No idea how to make money, other than what I had my degree in. And it was crazy. The next 2 years were kind of rough. Just trying to figure it out. I barely making enough to like cover the part-time nanny to help me while I was trying to figure all this out. I tried like 17 different ways to make. I was like literally Googling how to make money from home. Like, nuclear engineer Googled how to make money from home.
But I think that's also a really important part for people who are, considering this or thinking about it. Like, it takes time. It's not, for some people, it could be an overnight thing, but it might not be.
No, I mean, I've never met an overnight success story that didn't have years of struggle behind it, behind that one overnight.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure they're out there. I just haven't met them.
I've never met them.
Okay, so you're on the struggle bus figuring it all out. Was there something that just clicked all of a sudden and it just kind of fell into place? Or was it more of just the persistence of not ever stopping?
Well, I mean, the persistence came after something clicked for me. And what happened was I started, is one of my 17 different business ideas. I started selling other people's stuff. I was like, I don't know what to sell on my own, so I'm going to start selling other people's stuff. So I ended up selling a funnel strategy through Russell Brunson, ClickFunnels. And I ended up getting really good at funnel strategy, which is what I do now. But I was selling his stuff, and I ended up winning an affiliate award. And he flew the top 10 affiliates out to his headquarters. And we all got to stand in the room of the 2 Comma Club awards and took our pictures. And then we all got to ask him one question. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to ask him? What am I going to ask him? And it came my turn. And I just was like, so with the question I asked him, I was like, well, everybody wants one of those awards, right? Every single person that stands in that room wants one of those awards. But I asked him, like, what is the big difference between those who get it and those who don't?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah. And his answer, really changed everything for me. He didn't say anything like it was crazy smart or that I hadn't heard before, but I don't know if I was in that the right time, right place to actually hear it.
Yeah.
But what he said was, he's like, well, if I open up your ClickFunnels account, how many funnels am I going to see in there? He's like, because if I see hundreds of funnels, if I see a bunch of stuff that you're doing, I'm going to say your chances are really slim. But if I see one thing in your account, now you got a chance. And really what he was saying, like, I'm just sitting there, oh my God, please don't open my ClickFunnels. He wasn't saying anything profound. He was saying, like, focus on one thing. Like, if you spread yourself, you try all these different things. I mean, that's exactly what I was doing. And so he was saying, like, master one thing, get really good at one thing. And then that's how you get these big dollars, these big awards, because you master something and people value mastery. Mastery sells. So, I was like, oh my God, but I needed one more question. I just need one more question. And I was like, well, what funnel? I have hundreds. Like, I didn't say, I was like, what funnel? If you tell me, like, focus on one. And so he told me a high ticket presentation funnel. He's big into webinars and stuff. And so I was like, okay. So I went home from that. That was August of 2019. And I was like, I actually archived every single funnel in my account except the one. I couldn't delete them. I just couldn't bring myself to actually delete them, but I archived them. It's like, that has to count. And I launched it, and that's how I launched it in October of 2019. So a couple months later, and I got zero sales. And it was heartbreaking because I was like, no, this is the one. This is the one. But the one thing that changed was I didn't go start a new funnel. I didn't, start beating myself up. I didn't start over from scratch. I didn't go find the 18th business idea. I just opened that funnel up again, and I did it again. I just found a few things I could improve on, and I ran it again. And then the second time I ran it, I got a couple of clients, 2 or 3, something like that. Nothing impressive, but like, people gave me money for like me. And that was kind of cool. And so I did it again. I was like, how can I make this better? And so I launched it again, January of 2020. And like, out of nowhere, I had a 6-figure launch.
That's amazing.
And I've been doing it ever since. Got my 2 Comma Club award 7 months later. Still do the same strategy today. Now I teach it. But there was a persistence piece in that, because everything in me wanted to pivot as soon as I got 0 sales. I was like, oh, well, Russell must have been wrong,
Well, and that's the interesting thing that I know so many people struggle with. I know I've struggled with, like, where is that line between insanity and persistence?
Yeah. And that is the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again. But also, you think about it, like, my kids are in baseball, and they have them get up to bat thousands of times. And so, if you get up to bat and you expect to be able to hit a home run on your first ever swing, like, you're probably going to be disappointed.
Sure.
But if you get up to bat often enough, like, eventually you're going to hit the ball. Like, it might not go out of the park, but like, you're going to hit it. And then once you know how to hit it, like, now you can learn how to hit it a little bit better, a little off, whatever. I don't know, baseball, the stuff, but like, they tell them, like,
how is that possible? You live at the baseball fields.
I do live at the baseball fields, but like, then, like, once you hit the ball, like, so Wesley's just learning now. Jax is like a pro, but, and they're like, first, just concentrate on hitting the ball. Once you can hit the ball, now we start getting your bat right and your swing, optimizing your swing. But it's like, if you can't first hit the ball, so it's like, if you don't give yourself enough at bats to hit the ball, like, you're never going to master it.
So good. So good. And also not focusing on, well, what's the first baseman doing? What are the outfielders doing? What is the crowd doing? Like, what's the weather conditions? What are the field? I mean, like, you think about all the different aspects of business. It's no wonder people get overwhelmed.
Oh, it's like, I was just telling a client that this morning, like, distraction is the enemy.
Mm.
Like there's distractions everywhere, and it's so easy to fall into that. And then here we are again, spinning our wheels.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, like how many times would you have run that funnel with it not working before you would have switched?
Yeah, I don't know. And it wasn't crazy results right at first, it was like, it didn't have to be like, I just learned how to hit the ball, and hitting the ball felt better than striking
Not.
out.
Right.
So I think recognizing the small wins too helps with that, because if we're so focused on the big destination, the big goal that we're after, we lose sight of those hits that they went somewhere.
Yeah.
And we lose sight of, like, I used to strike out all the time, and now I'm hitting the ball consistently. It's not going in as far as I want it to go, but it's like, so we lose sight of how far we've come. So I think a big part of it is like looking at your progress and knowing and recognizing that as a win, not as a defeat.
Absolutely. And I think the reflection part of those failures is huge. You mentioned that you went in and you tweaked it and you made minor adjustments. It's not these major overhauls, but like, okay, what else can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also a missing piece for a lot of people, that it's like, oh, I failed, I'm done, I'm over. I got to go do something else.
And I actually, I mean, maybe it's the engineer in me, but I actually like going back and looking at the data, and I feel like it takes some of that sting away of like the failure, because like the data will tell you that like not the whole thing was bad.
Yeah.
Like
The data will always tell you, right?
the data doesn't lie, but we lie to ourselves.
Oh my gosh. So much. Uh, so I also love, meeting you, reconnecting. I think we reconnected in 22, maybe last year. Maybe it was just before that, but seeing where you were with your program then versus 2020, like it's been a huge evolution and growth, and now you've hired people. So I would love to hear about the hiring process and what that was like, because I know for so many entrepreneurs it's a huge piece of letting go control.
Oh, it was scary. It was really scary. I mean, first I hired my first VA, and it's like, oh my gosh, I have to pay somebody. I had to pay some, and then oh my goodness, when I hired my first W-2, I mean, talk about scary. Uh, and so it was just like it felt like learning how to hit a ball all over again, because I didn't know how to hire. This was a brand new skill set. Like I didn't even really know who I needed, what skills they needed. I didn't really know how to run a business back then. So it felt like, I was in the dark again. And very scary, but I reached the point in my business. It's like, well, if I want to grow, and the whole reason that I left my job was so I didn't have to work so hard and be gone, and I could be more present. It's like, if I don't do something, like I'm going to go one way or the other. Like I'm going to end up working again, or I'm going to cap my growth. So I did the big scary thing, and I hired someone. And then you got to learn how to train them. You got to learn how to fire them. Oh, the growing, the
All the
skills.
things.
Like we all think like, oh, if I just make, as soon as I'm making money, everything will be great. And it's just like, as soon as you're making money, something like it's constant developing new skills. And that was a big one. It continues to be like, now you got to manage them, right? You got to tell them when they're doing good. You got to keep them rallied even when you don't want to rally. Like it's exciting, and I love my team. Made a lot of bad hires, made a lot of mistakes. Didn't know what I didn't know, right? And so sometimes you just have to get out there and do it so that you can learn.
So what do you think is the biggest learning you've had with hiring? Like, what sort of processes do you have in place now?
So I think now I just look at it through a whole different lens, and I look at like my business as the client. And so it's like, what does the business need? who does the business need? Not what does Melissa want or who does Melissa want? Is what does the business need? And if you look through that lens, again, it helps take some of that, emotion out of it. And the other big realization for me is like your business needs different things at different stages. And just because you hire somebody in your business, might have been perfect for your business, what your business needed at one point. Now your business is growing and they might not be what your business needs now. And that was a really hard one for me. Terrible. I hate firing. It's awful.
Well, I don't think I'd be friends with someone who loved it. Like, imagine that person.
No, I mean, yeah, if I could hire that person just to come in. Luckily, I haven't had to do it, but it stings every time, and some of it was my fault. Not, I mean, it's just as much on us if we hire the wrong person, or we don't get the right skill sets or the right fits, or we don't train them or help them reach their goals. It's just as much on us. But unfortunately, we're like the one person that can't be fired, right? No matter what we screw up.
But that's such a good point, though. I mean, like, you think how many, and just looking at society in a whole, like, scrolling through whatever social media, you'll always see people blaming things.
Oh, yes.
Instead of not taking the responsibility. So, I mean, I think just listening to you say that, I mean, there's no wonder you're so successful. You're able to take the responsibility and be like, okay, now how do we move forward?
Yeah. And that's the key, is like, you just have to keep moving forward. I've been through my business has put me through some the ringer a few times. And at any one of those, I mean, there was at one point I wanted to just burn my business down. I began to resent this thing that I was building. And the only reason it's still standing is because I just kept going. Like, just one foot in front of the other.
Just keep going. Like Dory, just keep
Just
swimming.
keep going.
Well, what do you think is, like, do you think there's any scenario where you could have, looked back to 2019 Melissa and been like, okay, get out a list. These are the things you need to know. This is what, or do you think you had to go through the growth process to get here?
So I think a little of both. I mean, I do think it is so important to have someone who's been is ahead of you, because certainly I could have skipped some of the mistakes I made, some of the steep learning curve, if I had just known what I didn't know, like just someone tell me like what I don't know. But a big chunk of it, no, I absolutely had to go through it, because I had to become a different person.
Yeah.
In order to lead a team and to even understand how to run a business. Like, you can't read a book or hire a coach and like all of a sudden you know how to run a business. Like, it just doesn't work that way. But there's so much value in having someone to mentor you, to help you not avoid it, but go through it faster.
Yes. Fail fast.
Just faster. And then, like, when you're in those ruts, to have somebody there that says like, you're like, everybody goes through this, because when you're in these big rut, like, you feel like nobody talks about that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so it can be the most isolating time for a business owner, because they feel like, what's wrong with me?
Absolutely.
And what they don't realize is everyone's been through that. They just don't talk about it. And there's a lot of value. I mean, I put myself in the room with people who are ahead of me, and it just makes me feel better about the bad stuff that I know is going to happen. Like, it's like, you can't avoid it. It's just some of it. And then being around people who've already been through it, it's like, you can get through it faster.
Right.
Because
So did you have coaches?
I did. I've always worked with somebody, but again, it's a skill set of understanding what you need, and then finding the right person who actually has done what you want to do. So it's a little bit of a skill to find the right people to work with.
Absolutely. Because there's so many things out there. And when you don't know what you don't know, it's hard to be able to ask the crucial questions to get to that meat.
It is. And, you know, especially in the business world, you know, we focus a lot on sales. And so you see a lot of people, I'll help you get more money, more money, more money, more money. And really, that's just the cute little marketing tricks, right? It's like where you make it or break it is on the back end of your business. And like nobody's out there talking about that stuff.
No, because that's not sexy. No one wants to
It's
talk
not
about
the
that.
sexy stuff. And so to find somebody who will actually help you build a business that is sustainable, scalable, that you can have consistent revenue. Yeah, that, I mean, it took me a while to find the right people. But now it's like they're invaluable.
Well, I know a couple of them and they're fantastic. So hopefully they're listening to this and they know who they are.
They,
So
they double as your therapist too.
I feel like, you know, I had a woman on who is in recruiting and HR, and she talked about so much about how they're overlapping and having to do the job of coaches and therapists, and like so much of that. My mic just slid down. So much of that is kind of embedded in there, but we love to, you know, put things into different categories and boxes, but there really is so much overlap. Um,
There,
between
there really is. And I think both sides of it are really important. You need the strategy, you need like someone to tell you what to do, but you also need just someone to help you process
yeah.
and just talk through things.
Absolutely. And it's hard for me because I'm not much of an external processor, but when I do, when I find a person that I feel safe enough to go through that with, oh man, it makes things so much faster.
Yeah, sometimes we just need to get it out. Like get all the mess out of here. And once it's
Yeah.
out, like once it's out, we can do something about it. But if we keep it in here, oh my gosh.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Well, Melissa, I have really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for your time. I know you've always got such amazing programs going. So please let us know what you've got going on right now or what's upcoming for you.
Oh, we've got lots of stuff going on. Right now, we're running, we've got a free challenge going on. We have free challenges every quarter. Got lots of upcoming events. If you want to learn anything about automation, funnel strategy, um, come on over, check it out.
Oh, and I'm sure with all the different AI stuff, like we could have had a whole different conversation just going on over on the AI and what you've seen with that.
Oh yeah, it's so fun. Maybe that's the engineer in me. I don't know.
Well, maybe that could be a conversation for another time. But
Absolutely.
I have been through your free challenges. I've been through the coaching. It is great stuff. So I highly recommend it to everyone who is listening. Melissa, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
To everyone, I will have information on how you can reach Melissa and learn more about Engineer to Scale. It will be in the show notes below this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share with your audience. And let us know if there's a topic that you're interested in, and we'll try to get a guest on for you to listen to. Until next time, thanks so much.